to another exciting show. And had a few technical difficulties before the show started because someone accidentally deleted the show and had to start it all over again. So there we go. So, but hope it's all working now. And welcome to the show. Now, tonight's guest, David, will be 10 minutes late, apparently. A note from parents, I think he has. But in the meantime, the jolly team are here. So where
Yay.
should we start? Hey, so it's Patrick all the way from Wisconsin, who's our cheese ambassador and last outpost, Zulu outpost. We've got his Royal Hanorak,
Good evening, Chris.
who
Good
is
evening,
our
Patrick.
Good
Fockham
evening.
Transport Minister. And we got Six Blade, who's Christ knows where he is, but he's somewhere in where is it now?
He's on YouTube.
He's on YouTube.
Yeah, evening all.
Evening all, and
Evening.
I've sent him the studio link, but I think I don't know, I think he's got a bit lost. And we got in chat, we got Matilda. Evening, Matilda. You're a new person in chat. And it's equals now. We've got exactly the same number of people on Rumble as YouTube. Now, if you go onto YouTube and you don't find me there, it's because I accidentally deleted it before coming on the show. But it's been reinstated at the last moment, so it'll be in a different sort of location, if that makes sense. So, and on Rumble, it'll be the same. I'm in a different location. But apart from that, everything's okay. Now, he was going to talk about the Falklands War and Marconi because many years ago, in the early 80s, I think it was 1981, 1982, during the Falklands War, or soon afterwards, I remember there's a mass of strange deaths surrounding Marconi. Oh, hello, here he is. Evening, Steve. And this is Steve joining us. As you've guessed, our guest is late this evening. He has a note from his parents, and we've actually got Aunt Sally in the wings to give him a bloody good thrashing afterwards.
Is that why he's there 20 minutes late?
He won't come at all now. Or our big queue of people want to be guests on the show. Oh, we'll be late.
I think you're on mute there, Steve.
You're on mute.
He knows.
Yeah. But anyway, tomorrow night, Steve and I are on a show with the rest of the team, if you're keen, called Boom Banga Bang. And would you like to do a little outline? We're going to do a little bit of survival and a little bit of things like that. But it's about pointy things that go bang, which I can't mention on YouTube.
Yeah, is that a banned word? I'm sure people can get the gist of what you're talking about.
Big stick that go bang bang, you know.
Fire stick. Go boom.
Go boom. Things that are allowed in America, but we're not allowed to have them because we're naughty. And I want to live in Texas.
Not the DIY place, presumably.
Was it? They say that an armed population creates politeness. But I believe you've been to the Falklands, Steve. You were mentioning, because we're filling in before our guest comes on.
Oh well, in that case, yeah, I've been there twice.
Really?
Yeah.
And,
It's a tremendous place.
I thought it was a shithole. I mean, I thought it's cold.
Okay.
Damp,
Yeah, it's a shithole. I wouldn't want to live there personally. No, it's beautiful in its own right. I mean, it's wilderness. It's a wilderness setting.
Really?
Rugged, kind of flat and exposed. I say flat. There's certainly mountainous regions or hilly regions.
Really?
Boggy. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, it's a terrific landscape if you're an animal, but if you're, I mean, it's a long way to the nearest disco, and pubs are few and far between. Actually, I've had some awesome nights in the pubs in Stanley.
Stanley? What is it? Just one, or is there one?
There's more than one. I think there's two.
What? Two? Wow! So a pub crawl, that'd be quick, wouldn't it? You just sort of into one. And
Can I give you my claim to fame? I sang. You'll love this one. I sang at a karaoke in a pub, in a bar. I don't know if it's called a pub. In a bar in Stanley, and I sang "I'm a Barbie Girl."
Really?
And I'd done the dance as well. That was pretty good.
I'm a Barbie girl.
And you admitted to this.
You don't get any more hardcore than singing "I'm a Barbie Girl" in front of some, roughy tufty oil workers and fishermen in a bar.
But that was done well, so to speak.
I see Davis here.
Right, is David here? David, our guest, welcome to the show. No, nothing yet.
Right. Video, right. Video.
Hang on, is that a Dalek or is? Oh, hang on. Hello, David. Good evening, David.
Good evening.
Yes.
Thank you. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Yes.
Hi, Steve. Hi, Eric.
Right, and we got Patrick and Anorak here as well. Why is it I'm in a big picture and you two are on the small pictures? It looks a bit conceited, doesn't it?
You're the host.
Hang on. Let's try a few other things. Will that do it? No.
Nope.
No.
That's
sorry.
Eric, you're the host.
Actually, I think conceited git. Look at him with his. But right now, do you want David? Do you want the good news or do you want the bad news?
Well, I'm hoping by the bad news, Eric, you're not going to say, after all the effort we've been through, although this was a bit last minute, you're not going to say that all the files and media that I've got to show your fantastic audience, I hope you're saying that you now can't show them, because I don't know how Rumble Studio works, but I sent them you by Telegram. So are you going to say, what are you going to tell me? Give me the bad news.
Well, I'll give it a try. All right. So here's giving it a try. I tried it earlier, and people could see nothing.
F all.
So yes.
You could send it to me, and I could share it, because I know that I can send things to the screen if need be.
Eric, can I, Eric and Pat, can I just say something? That what I just did a bit of research, and sadly, I need to use an AI app for this. I said, if I go on Eric's Rumble Studio as the host, and I come in as a guest, can I upload or show my own documents, images, etc.? And it said no, you have to use StreamYard, some other weird Chinese dodgy technology, and this, that, and the other. It says so Rumble can't do it via a guest.
You might be able to. There's a share button. It's like the middle button on the bottom.
Right.
Share screen. It's got like an arrow pointing upward with a box around it.
Shall I give it a try with myself? Because I'm now going to press the button. If I go off, it's been a very nice show.
It's always these technical things. There's a learning curve.
Oh, hang on, I pressed the wrong bleeding button now. Right, here we go. Right, window. Right, here we go. And I go show that one, share, and then I'll press that. Can you see it?
Bingo. Yeah, good man. That's Okay, so Eric, you're on the that's the starting image. We don't have to do this in sequence. It's basically, how do you, Eric, and anyone else want to discuss? It's quite a complex area in a way. So, and that it involves things like a bit of mind control, or that's a NAF term that I don't like, and that is Jose Delgado, who first used a wired method of stopping bulls from charging at people in Spain. I mean, amazing stuff in the 50s. Goes into the Manchurian Candidate stuff, if you know about that, in Korea in the war. So that's that image. But more importantly, I wanted you to start off with a video called it's called SANDS, sans.mp4. Is there any way that will work for your viewers? I don't know.
Well, I'll give it a try. I mean, I actually thought it was two people trying out practical skills in bullshitting.
Maybe.
Right, now let's have a go. Let's see what we can do here. Now, now let's press along here. Oh, we got these.
Now that's important, but for later. That's important for later.
Right. Okay. Right. Now let's go backwards. See what we got here. BT. Right.
You might have to.
Right.
Yeah.
Now,
there you go.
Well, it says download.
Well, press it.
No. Eric. That's too small. This one is like a newscast from the 1980s, and the reason I've sort of sent it you is because it sets up this whole astonishing area. I mean, boy, are your viewers in for a treat tonight with this area. And so you need to find the first video called sans.mp4, but it's going to be half a gigabyte, something like that. I mean, you should let me go on my iPad separate to this laptop, and let me see if it actually arrived at yours. Let me check.
Right, hang on.
Did you post this in the main Telegram channel for Falcom Hall?
No, Patrick. I sent it to Eric himself privately.
Got it.
On Telegram.
Got it.
I've got it. Yeah. I think I've got a bit of a mess here. Whilst you're doing, let's have a quick look in chat, shall we? So have a look at our friends in chat. Now we've got here. My dad and ex-husband went to the Falklands. Yes, I've been to Bognor. Is that anything like the Falklands?
Was that it? Was that the total?
No, we've got load in chat. Yeah, I've been to Bognor. Is that? I should think that's a bit like Falklands, isn't it? You know,
I've been to Skeg. I've been to Skegness as well, but you know.
Oh, you poor sod.
No, exactly.
You escaped.
Right, we've got good evening from Mark Anthony, and we got Stolen Hellcat.
Right, personal.
And then we got Aunt Sally, who's either in the bath, getting in the bath, or got out of the bath. Has not revealed what part of the bath even we got. Then we got, where else we got? Baby with a laser. Hello, baby with a laser. Hi, all. Hi, baby, says Matilda. Now, hello, what's tonight's show about? I don't know, better ask David. No, it's a link between the Falklands War and Marconi, and a mystery. So
I haven't seen the term BT Cellnet for many, many years.
Yes.
Now you see, Steve. That's an interesting thing, because behind that BT Cellnet logo in the mid-90s, and I think you're probably my age, roughly. I don't know, but behind that BT Cellnet logo which went around on vans at the time, with another logo that was on limited vans on BT at the time called Project. It was called the Soulcatcher Network. It's the Project Soulcatcher. So, I mean, if we know about this stuff, if of course British people that are sort of Steve's, Eric's, and my age, then you know that of course BT came around, but before that it was what's called the GPO in the 70s, which is the General Post Office. So, like many countries, it was the same sort of company that did telegrams in the USA, and got the rail networks going. It was just this sort of thing that linked communication as we began to get things from telegrams, and then it gradually merged, of course, into what we have now is sort of internet fiber optics. And in between that, of course, what happens? They became private, sort of semi-private companies. Right. But the key thing is semi-private. So my theory has always been, and I think if we can get into this stuff, whether it's this time or next time, is that what essentially happened is that even though companies like the GPO or General Post Office, which Eric, you might know this, if you may not look at drains, just like at 1970s dog poo, which also was around in the 70s, dog poo on the pavements. Then if you looked at drains, it used to say the GPO, General Post Office, where they had hardwired cables from the post office. That then moved to a private company called BT, as we know. But the thing is, I believe there was always still a government involvement in it, and hence then what we can go on to discuss, which is why were BT, which was our old national, meant to be looking after us and helping us with our communications company, why were BT then involved in a project aimed to collect all of the British people's soul in quotes, the data from their habits and all sorts of things, which is under Project. I mean, they didn't even hide it. Project Soulcatcher. But I can go on to that a bit later. So, right, I'm still looking. I've just sent Patrick. Okay. I don't know if this is going to help. I've just sent Patrick the main video. Whether he can help or not, I don't know.
I've shared my screen. So, Eric, if you want to take yours down.
Okay, I'll take mine down. And by the way, Baby with a Laser, just before we do, said, hard to believe, but I know the guy in the thumbnail with a flag in the Falklands. So we had someone famous there.
Eric, go ahead and leave yours going, but you see at the bottom, you should see mine.
Right. Yeah, come on, go on, Patrick. Save the day. Save the day.
On the screen.
Right, hang on a minute.
It says yours, but it won't do it. Scientists secrets, and silence.
Won't do it. Now, I'm wondering whether to stop sharing and then start sharing with you. So I'll stop sharing. And there you go.
Let's see if it plays. Tell me if you hear the audio.
Okay.
Is there audio to this?
Please work.
No.
Right, that's the one. Well done, mate. Well done.
Do you hear it though?
Thanks, Patrick.
No.
You're a miracle. You're a genius. You're much appreciated.
No audio. No audio.
No audio.
No audio.
No audio? Okay, give me a second.
Go on. You're a techno genius.
Yeah.
Thanks, mate. You've really come up
now
with
tell me if you can hear it. Do you hear that?
No audio yet.
Oh,
okay,
what a shame.
One more second. No, it's not a shame. I got it. Let's see here. Hide. I am going to select a different source here. Now you should be able to hear it.
Police are working on the theory.
Well done, mate. Sorry, I'll shut up. Right.
Okay, so
Rewind
do you want me to
it?
start?
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah, okay, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go.
Fire away.
Fire away.
David Sands, a married man aged 37 and recently returned from holiday, had stacked 10 gallons of petrol in the boot of his Maestro. Drove it at more than 80 miles per hour into a disused roadside cafe near Basingstoke. Colleagues and family say he had been depressed, and police are working on the theory that he deliberately crashed the car. Sands was said to be a brilliant scientist and had just finished a 3-year contract working on top-secret radar systems. It's the latest incident involving scientists working for the Marconi Group. Last year, Vimal Dajibai from Kenton and Ashad Sharif from East London were found dead near Bristol. Families say they don't believe it was suicide. Then in January, Avtar Singh Gida disappeared near Loughborough University, where he was working on a similar defence project.
The basic elements of what we know do add up, I agree, to very much like the plot of a television thriller. That surely entitles the public to know what is going on and what has happened to these people.
An official inquiry will now be launched by the Marconi Group into the latest death, and the government is expected to make a statement later this week.
That's it. Anyone there? Hello?
Thanks, Patrick. That's much appreciated. Thanks, mate.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Now, David, I remember that. I'm old enough to remember it. And I remember the Marconi, what was happening. Now, and when I say what was happening, I remember the strange deaths. And that was on the days when the BBC had things interesting that you could watch before it went all weird and what it is today. I think it's my brother-in-law's father worked for Marconi. I think he was retired by that time, though, because he'd been there for years. You know, he retired I think it was in the late 70s, but I don't know. Anyway, on with the story. We got the Falklands War. When was that? It was about 1982, wasn't it?
Yeah. All right. Okay. Yeah. And it's interesting, Eric, you say you had, because I tell you, I've done this research, along with a couple of other people. Duncan Rose from Nexus magazine, a very famous sort of.
I know. Yes, Nexus magazine.
Yeah, Nexus.
Yes.
Nexus magazine has done huge amounts for our area, and it's gone on for like 25, 30 years. So Duncan Rose and another person from New Zealand. But this has been 12 years worth of work on this. And we've got developed a new angle on it. But I'm just making the point that just as you, Eric, say, that, and of course we're of that sort of age where we might have had grandparents or uncles, or whatever, that might have worked for, because Marconi now is really not really so much of a thing in England or the UK. But back when you go to, it started off with, of course, Marconi, the actual dude, Marconi himself, who, interestingly, you got to think about this, like, my God, an Italian guy, right, developed the telegraph and ability to message. He started off by messaging ships and then sending signals then over from to the USA. But where did Marconi come to spend the first 10 years of his life and start sending his experimental signals from? Over in good old Blighty in England. And so you got it. And again, you'll see the themes that I'm sort of making here. It's like, why is England, and again, I'm not bigging up our country. I love our country. I love our history. I think we're a great country. although we've got a few wankers running it, right? But you got to ask. This is a repeating theme to do with even the technology that arrived here that we can go on to discuss. But also, why did Marconi come and he set up in Wales and Cornwall, for God's sake? Not the most romantic areas. It's not like central London where you can get lots of whores and drugs and whatever else if you want a few cheap thrills. No, he was an amazing guy, and he set up in the corner of Cornwall and Wales and did lots of experiments for a year. Okay. And what's interesting is that then gradually Marconi sort of spread out and got bigger and bigger, but of course with British government backing. And then we get to a culmination point of what happened with the Falklands War in 1982, when essentially what happened, and this is my belief and a few others, that some technology came back from the Falklands War, which in a way was a very strange war because, Eric, as you know, I mean, if you remember that era, I mean, I'm sure, I've got some images. The problem is I can't show a few of the images that I normally show if I discuss this stuff. But, the Sun, Eric, you might remember, it did this thing called Gotcha. And it's like Gotcha because we sank a ship called the Belgrano. Belgrano, do you remember the Belgrano? Yeah.
I remember that, and it was sailing away from the Falklands, apparently. Oh, by the way, I've just noticed, Steve. I like your name. I just noticed it. Port Stanley Steve. Thanks.
Oh, you like that?
I like that. Yeah. Wow.
Thank you.
There was a hell of a hoo-ha about that, wasn't there?
There was, and that goes into even more stuff. But I know this is sort of your group and Paul English's group, so I don't want to bore people. But that's to do with the Exocet missile and some weird stuff to do with switch-off codes and how the Argentinians had got hold of this from the black market. I mean, there's so many tangents to all this stuff, which, as I said, we can go into another time. I'm trying to keep this really straight as a sort of introduction really to this stuff. But so essentially the Falklands War finished. Even if you don't buy my theory that something went on down there, that was because, again, both as you and Steve know, there's a certain most of it took place. Steve mentioned Port Stanley. That's where where the people were, and they said, "Oh, come and protect us from the Argentinians." And I agree with that. I don't believe no country should come in and take over even the smallest place that another country owns. So like, F off, So I agree with protecting a few sheep and a few rocks on the main Falkland Islands. But the problem is this took place further south, near to the north. I mean, you've got, again, I don't want to push this because it's difficult. You've got an image there showing my breakdown, and I show where it's called Southern Thule, right? Or Thule or Thule, if you're German, and get this. So if you're into the whole German thing, why were they called? We've got a Thule base, Thule, in the north, and we've got a Thule or Thule island just above the Antarctic. The Britain owns in the South Sandwich Islands. Now, why are we using these German phraseologies? Well, I've got a theory on that as well. But the thing is, it wasn't all about the main Falklands. So why was this Falklands War such a huge big thing that Thatcher was willing to almost nuke, and again nuke Argentina over, had a row with France over the Exocet missile, all this other stuff. But I'll try. Interrupt me. Both of you can interrupt me when you want. But
I have a question.
Sure.
You know that a lot of Italian immigrants moved to Argentina at the turn of the century.
Did they?
Yeah.
Yeah, I read the last Pope Francis. He had an autobiography. I read about it, and there were lots of Italians that moved down there around the turn of the century. His parents, his grandparents, and lots of ships sinking too, loaded with people immigrating. So they had a lot of boat people going down there and getting shipwrecked, and scores of people dying.
I know, but also what happened in World War II? Well, a lot of sensible German. I don't want to side with the Germans in World War II. Don't want to see it, but a lot of sensible German submariners ended up going to Argentina and trying to surrender there, knowing they get better treatment because they'd heard about what happens when they end up going to sort of America and other places, or getting sunk by various other.
Yeah, Harry Cooper talks about that. Harry Cooper,
yeah, a friend of mine that I've spoken to for years, and he's got. I mean, he went to Argentina and found out all about these German submarines, and And again, we've got plenty of time to discuss this whole area in the future. But what's interesting is, of course, there was a Battle of the Falklands, I think, in the First World War. I forgot, but there is a battle. So there was a see. So Eric remembers. I forgot, but there's a battle of.
No,
so
I wasn't around in those days. I assure you. I
well,
remember. I'm getting on a bit,
Well, if you were Eric, you've aged beautifully, right? If you were, but it's. So there was but the point is this southern Thule. So as Steve mentioned, you got Port Stanley. Oh, I can't do it up here. You've got Port Stanley, then you've got the Antarctic sort of shelf there. You've got sort of the Argentina and everything else, the South America there, and then you've got these South Sandwich Islands, and they're tiny. Okay, but so what happened as part of all the research in the last 10, 12 years that I did? I ended up going to a place that Tony Blair set up called Kew Gardens in London, this big sort of posh place that's full of essentially one of Labour's in the 90s, one of Labour's main pledges when they came in, things can only get better, all that other rubbish that they did, right? As part of that sort of thing, they said, we are going to basically, we're New Labour, and we're going to basically say the British people, watch how Blair changed since. He's now doing ID cards. He wants your DNA. He wants everything else.
Oh, yes. Well, I've got a nice tune about Kew Gardens. Did I tell you? Did you know I'm a songwriter? Seriously? Yeah.
Cue your gardens then. Cue it.
Well, you see, I wrote a tune. It's very nice about a man waiting for a train to go there. And it's called "I'm Waiting for a Train for Kew." Sorry.
See, Eric, I never know. Is that one of your jokes that it's taken too long to process in my aged brain? Too long to. All right. Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. Anyway, so.
Sorry, David.
So Kew Gardens, is a place where you can go and get freedom information stuff, and you can go and you have to sort of say advance to that, and you have to sort of book a session. There's a bit you can do remotely on a computer, but this is going back years ago. And of course, but what I found was if you go into the logistics of the whole Falklands War, and my God, did I spend days, weeks, months on this? That what I found is there's more attention. So as Steve said, you got Port Stanley, all the other stuff with the Falklands War, Big Island, all the stuff that our media, Belgrano, everything was focused on. Then you got these little things, British-owned South Sandwich Islands, which Southern Thule, a tiny island, it's 1 kilometre wide, right? And what happened is that all the documents I found, they were all. The majority after the war had the ceasefire, or they used craftily, like in World War II, they used a different term, so it wasn't quite a ceasefire. That this island had more attention and more documents, most of which are still to this day you can't find. So I could find, if I wanted to find out with Port Stanley what happened with the Falklands War, how many troops went in here, was there a peace agreement between the mayor of Port Stanley? I could find all that stuff right on the government foyer that Blair had done. But if I want to find out, what the F happened, given that the Germans, as we said in World War One, they had a battle of the Falklands Islands. Mm-hmm. Before the Falklands War in 1976, Britain sent a huge armada, and somewhere I've got the ships listed. The amount, frigates this, battleship this, submarine this, special forces this, went down to this island again ahead of the Falklands War. So what was going on that they were so interested in that, despite this war was all about really the Falklands, which was, as Steve said, the main bit of Port Stanley, where the capital is. So it's my theory. Let's try and shortcut this a bit. It's my theory that what happened, there was something far more going on there, and there was some technology. Not going to go into that area now. That then went back to Britain, to England, got rushed back. The Falklands War ended in April 1982. Well, lo and behold, then Marconi suddenly had this explosion in development. I've got documents saying they built a new high-tech building here there after the Falklands War, because I have information from various sources that said that Marconi basically found something from the Falklands War, something that was taken back, and they then were asked to sort of deal with this technology. But anyway, that's the issue. That's the issue to do with the Falklands. Let's leave that there. It gets a bit thing is, well, Eric, what I hope I'm not
jumping the gun. Sorry to come in, but Baby with a Laser said, have you heard about so-called, am I jumping the gun by saying this, sending black goo and the Falklands? Miles Johnson goes on about it. So I just sort of put
okay. Well, it was me that did the first interview on this, and it's Miles that called the term black goo. it was me that did the first interview with down. I went to Miles's house for 3 days and filmed 3 2-hour videos on the early bits of this topic. And so yeah, this black goo is a term that, and it came. It sounds a bit ludicrous, a bit sci-fi, but it came. I was there when this term was sort of coined by Miles. Actually, the term came from, if you watched a sci-fi film called The Blob. There's a few in Antarctica. It's like, oh my god, the blob, and it's gonna. Yeah, I mean, that's our era. We've seen that, but that was about a self-replicating intelligent thing they found in Antarctica. So that we had that sort of thing. They called that the goo. But then at the same time, we had people like John von Neumann, who was a member of. Who's the majestic? You might anyway. In the UFO field, we have things called this.
Majesty 12.
Well, fantastic. Who said that then? Who's that?
Patrick.
Right, thank you, Patrick. Right, my God, right, okay, yeah. So, Majestic 12. John von Neumann was sort of one of the leaders of this, and he had this thing where he basically developed this semi-synthetic, semi-electric bio substance that could go on circuit boards called the grey goo. Okay, and it allowed information to be passed, but it was semi-biological. Well, so Miles then, as this your guest, your commenter just mentioned, called it the black goo, and that's sort of spread over the internet on this whole idea of, well, was this the technology? I call it the sentient nano substance. So it's basically, it was something that caused a lot of, and again, it takes a lot of stuff you need a lot of reading, a lot of listening to find out where this term came from. But something happened at Marconi. They took this technology on, but the bit that we agreed to cover, Eric, on this is to do with the deaths. So do you mind, Eric? I mean, can I read out some of these? This is the list of 23 deaths, because the point is, as we just saw, the context. So we just saw David Sands. Okay, so I met a friend of his several years ago, and all these people at Marconi, and there are people, the companies linked to Marconi that spread out. But at the start, it was just Marconi itself. They had you mentioned Essex, where there was a branch. Rochester, Eric, is that in Kent? Is it Kent? Rochester? Have you heard it? Is that near you?
Yes,
Rochester.
It's in Kent. Yeah, it's not
Kent,
near
right,
me, but it's the other side of the Thames. Yeah, it's
right,
Rochester
there you go.
and Kent, yeah.
All right, so you're right with Essex, but I think they had one in Wales. They had several sort of depots, but
I'm not sure what the one in Essex was, but it was. I know, as I say, my brother-in-law's father worked there in Essex. But they had them all over the place. But Rochester, well, yes, it was in Kent. It was a naval dockyard, I think, Rochester.
Well, I think you were the one where, and what happened is, as well as me going to Kew Gardens, to Tony Blair's Freedom of Information Network on the Falklands, where I couldn't find anything to do with this weird Southern Thule Sandwich Islands, and why on earth were all these special forces turning up there? I couldn't find all that sort of stuff. So I ended up going then to looking into the depots like Rochester in Essex and perhaps a few others. And in the old days, we're going back to now like 2003, 4, 5. And so I sort of used my very amateur hacking things and got into FTPs, zooming into like their own Marconi local sort of sites and sort of member sites and other things. And I found a document that in 1983 said this hugely advanced laboratory was built to deal with below micron, and this is, so we go into sort of, I don't know, is it nanoscale? I don't know. Nano's a buzzword. So I found that in 1983, 1984, just as the Falklands War had finished, and again, based on some information that comes into another area that I found out, that essentially this one main branch of Marconi, might have been Rochester, I don't know, built this whole astonishingly highly advanced factory scientific unit to deal with, and it had like clean sphere, and I read all these. I've sent you the document, but you've got the news release, the newsletter release that I found. But I then found another one, and it was like, right, well, staff now must go through a certain clean sphere sort of thing and get and make sure they've got no bacteria on to then move in. Well,
clean room.
Marconi previously had only dealt with electronics to do with a little bit to do with submarines, space torpedoes, torpedoes, space satellites. For all that sort of stuff, you don't need to go down to this hugely strict nano level where you've got this huge containment area. But that happened at the end of the war. So anyway, so let's just assume that at the end of the Falklands War, something happened, a technology got brought back. Could all be wrong, could all be bullshit. I'm a big one that I don't, I never say that my research is right or my friend's research is right and stuff.
I have a question.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
Do you know about the Sackler family's relation to Kew Gardens? And who the Sackler family are? They ran Purdue Pharma, the largest opiate seller in the world.
Well, okay. Well, as a former person that has a big problem with opiates, then I know all about the Sackler family, but I don't know about their links to Kew Gardens, and I'd be very interested in that, especially because of Blair.
There are a number of gardens named after the Sackler family at Kew Gardens.
Oh, are you saying within Kew Gardens there's some that link to their family name?
Yes, and they were one of the big philanthropist funders of Kew Gardens.
Right. Well, I saw a documentary on them, and they they were there opening museum wings and all sorts of shit for to try and get their name. I mean, it's a bit, is it, Patrick? You know this. It's a bit like the guy Alfred Nobel who invented destructive gunpowder, and then invented the Nobel Prize to try and make himself look a bit great and as a philanthropist. It's the same thing, isn't it?
Well, it makes me wonder too, because they're dealing in such a high narcotic as opium. They're probably dealing with submarines and all sorts of things to smuggle it in and out of wherever they bring it in and out of. That might explain some of it, and it's a black goo too, of sorts. If you've ever much about the process.
That's a great link, and I'm not going to ask how you know that opium is about black goo, but you're right. There's a good black goo link between that, and who knows? We know, don't we? Us lot who delve into these areas, we know that they use funny little jokes against us. So they may have well used black goo linked to, as Patrick said, the fact the Sackler family were replicating heroin and other things, and opium is a black goo, and which is what we went in and took. Of course, we effed the Chinese over in the opium wars with all this. So there's a big issue going on here, and it wouldn't surprise me if Tony Blair, who set up Kew Gardens with all this freedom of information stuff, that maybe Blair was linked to the Sackler family. Of course, they all love shaking hands in a sort of rather sort of sneaky Jewish sort of way with each other. So, anyway, right, let's just get to so on the bare bones of this. So something came back, a technology exchange took place after the Falklands War. But what happened? And my point is, and then everyone else can come in after this because I'll sort of finish there. My point is, what if a technology that came back was so astonishing and caused so many, caused so much problems, it didn't even leak out into the main sort of UK or global public field. And I've got quotes on that as well for other things that's really quite interesting. But if this technology was so astounding and maybe a bit out of their, even Marconi, who were the leaders, right? They were the leaders in dealing with all of this electronic stuff. That at the time they had the copyrights and various other things for our satellites in Britain and in many other. I mean, Marconi were leaders in their field, and certainly, let's say that Britain after the war were getting a bit behind the USA, maybe China almost in a little way, but Marconi were the leaders in the sort of British sort of post-colonial sort of field of this electronics communication and what I call above government, which means that that's my phrase for sort of black governments, which just means these are people still linked to the state, parliament, everything else, but they are an elite group. They sort of laugh a little bit at our parliamentary politics, and they've got their own sort of networks that then go on and do things, which includes corruption, crime, mafia, drugs selling, human trafficking, and these above government groups that are also probably linked to maybe import of these what we call exotic, or in their words, where they have a little laugh, they call them, and this is an in joke within these high realms, they call them the foreign technologies, which could that be from China, or could that be from a even weirder source? But foreign technologies, that's the joke. Anyway, so what happened? After this technology began, they began trying to deal with it, okay? And what happened at Marconi is that when they tried to deal with this sentient nano substance that came probably from the Falklands, is that when they tried to deal with it, with British satellite systems, it started affecting them. It started communicating on its own, right? And I've got quotes from within the people at Marconi that attest to this, that it started messing with our satellite systems. So something happened with this strange substance that started transmitting and altering things. And I don't know whether they couldn't get a grip on this technology or what, but as a result, what you saw from 1983 onwards were, let's get this on. Okay, I mean, I don't know whether Eric can get this up, but there's a link here to, and these are the 23 people I've sort of traced. What happened is the most. I mean, you've got to imagine that there's probably a lot of secrets in Britain about World War One. There's probably a huge amount of stuff in World War Two that that we didn't want this sort of stuff. No, we don't want this out. But no, we didn't see these sort of weird, bizarre deaths and things. Then what happened after Falklands and when Marconi got this stuff is a year later, all the way for the next 7 years, we got these 23, 24, 25 deaths. Just as you may have seen them with microbiologists more recently, naturopaths in America, also people that just in groups start disappearing. So you've got this list of people, and they are the most bizarre deaths. Some of which were covered by another British author. Can I get this in here? Got my web camera, obviously made in China.
Right, hang on, I'll just remove that one. Here we go. Right, okay. I'll see if I can get you.
Is that viewable? I've sent you that one as well. I mean,
open, but let's see if I can find it, and I might be able to put it up on the screen. Okay,
it's a shame, Eric. If we better organised, then I've sent you many images we could show that actually would make this a lot clearer. But we do what we can. All right.
Okay. Well, I'll try and find it. Here we go.
Can I go for a cigarette then?
Oh, here we are. I've got it. Here we go. I think I've got it here. Here we are. Just bear me a second. That's it. And I'll just. Can you see that? Is that out on the screen?
Looks good.
Yeah, that's it.
Here we are.
Okay, yeah. All right. So that's it. And I mean, Eric, if you can do it locally without it coming up, have a look around at any other topics I've covered. If you want to show some images, it just helps more because I'm in a dark Yorkshire sort of badly lit office. I'm not one of these that's got this amazing microphone and one of those circular lights for us being a YouTube influencer, right? I'm a bit of a hermit. I don't normally do this sort of stuff. But if you can find any images, then just throw them up. But okay, so Open Verdict was a book written in 1987 by Tony Collins, who worked for at that time, and you can tell the era it's in because that was it. It was Computer Weekly magazine. I mean, is that a blast from the past? Computer Week? Would you ever see anything like that today? Computer Weekly. So he moved from Computer Weekly, and a great guy. And I talked to him a couple of times at the start of this sort of research, and he went into all this. I don't want to complicate issues, but basically his conclusion he went into. Sorry, I'll just say. Why would he call it Open Verdict, right? So he said, I mean, he's got 25 mysterious deaths. I found 23 that I thought were really suspect, and I still want to go into this before we finish about how they died. And if your jaw doesn't drop, if I read out these 23 deaths, if your jaw doesn't drop, then you are a Borg that should be thrown out of the airlock on Star Trek, right? Because these deaths are astonishing and they are mental. We're talking people that... after they were working at Marconi, they were found. They tied a rope around their neck, sat in a car, tied a rope around their neck, tied the other part of the rope around a tree, and then pressed the accelerator on their car and pulled their own head off. Sounds ludicrous, but no, these are all there and registered, proper registered deaths. So you can have registered deaths in one respect with the police that we've all got. So we know how all these 23 people died. Bizarre death. Just give you all, just in case this all sort of finishes a bit soon. I realise another one which I sent to Eric a couple of hours ago in Telegram form. Another one was a lovely guy. Was it Victor Moore? I mean, a few of these people I feel like I almost know personally. But right, there's the book that I've got the whole draft Alien Fallout, which you can see there, and it's an astonishing book. And really, Eric's just shown the Tony Collins book here. Well. The other point I wanted to make is, my God, how come there's Open Verdict, right? So that was written in 87, 88. You got to ask yourself, have you seen anything? When you hear of these Marconi deaths, you'll see what I'm saying. But have you seen? You see these days you see documentaries on all sorts of political corruption, military corruption, wars. Have you seen anything to do with the Marconi deaths in the last? How many years have it been? 30 odd years, whatever. Have you seen? No, you haven't. And what about the poor relatives of all these people that by the time I finished reading the list out and you find out how they died and how their relatives are going, well, 1 minute they were absolutely normal. The next minute they're basically saying, someone's following me, this, that, and the other. I hate my job. I mean, these are defense contractors in various areas that were paid a bloody fortune. They were paid well. Some of these were Asians that were brought over from India for complex stuff. and yet their relatives are totally confused. And these poor relatives, throughout the last 40-odd years, have had no feedback on what's on earth happened. And that, why did Tony Collins then, from the British Computer Magazine 1997, why did he then call that open verdicts? Because when they began doing inquests for all these poor buggers that pulled their own heads off, or in one case went to their garden shed, and you think this is a joke. It's not. No, this happened. He put these, like, was he a colonel in the army? Anyway, he put electrical wires from the main supply from his house, shed, or whatever, to his fillings in his teeth. Sounds ludicrous. And then switched it on and electrocuted himself through his fillings. Again, sounds like, no, this is all down in sort of black and white in these police thingies. They don't deny this sort of stuff. But the point is, as I said, you can have police breakdowns and charges on how these people died, right? Which is sort of semi-covered in Tony Collins. I've done a bit more research than Tony's done, and how they died and stuff.
It might come in a little bit, because
Yep.
David Later said, did the guy who pulled his head off die in Edal, Derbyshire? I mean, I thought they all occurred in Essex. I didn't realise.
No, Eric. No, Eric. Some of these people were in Dubai. Some of these people throw themselves off a hotel, but they all work for the English Marconi company. But they may have been working abroad. Some of these were working for Oxford University or the military of defence in the toppest echelons, right? And
but do you know whether the bloke who pulled his head off was he?
Well, let me find. No. He wasn't for Essex. I'll tell you. I try and remember. See, I've looked into this for so long, but I get confused. Right, let me see who he was. Right, no. Okay, well, you come back to me in a minute and feedback. Right, okay. So I'm going to read these out very quickly. I'll just do the first 10. I've got 23 that I've researched, and many other people researched, and all these are factual. The point I wanted to make is, why did Tony Collins call his book Open Verdicts? Because the poor bastards, right, when the families went to try and go, well, what the F happened to my brother, sister, son, dad, whatever, what happened, and why would he suddenly and there were a few people who said, oh, he was depressed, or he was stressed from his Defense Department job. So that did go on. I'm not gonna, so that's a possibility. And there were some excuses that at that time, after the Falklands, there were some big stresses in the defense sector. But I worked out from statistics that actually, if you're a fisherman, you get a higher death rate than the defense industry. I mean, the stress levels and suicide levels are higher. I did lots of this stuff at the start. So he called it open verdict because these poor families, not one of them came up with, right, this is a murder. Right, it was always called an open verdict. Nearly all of them were open verdicts, right? So you've got. So what have you got?
So if I can summarise, because sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you then, but
no, you're right. You're okay.
Can someone keep summarising the points so far for the audience? So to summarise, we have this Falklands War that started, something mysterious they brought back, and it's goo, whatever. And then suddenly people from Marconi in all various locations throughout the country and the world started topping themselves, but in very strange ways. Where someone would normally just jump off a roof, they didn't. They would do it in very macabre ways. So, sorry, David. Okay, I hope that summarised correctly.
No, that's good, and I think especially with this case, as I chatted to you before earlier today, then with this, it can get a bit complex. But essentially, you're dead right.
When did this occur? When did the deaths occur? What year?
Well, Patrick, you start from, and that's my point, because of what I found out from the FOIA, Freedom of Information, and a few other sources about the Falklands War. So the Falklands finished in April 1982. Well, these deaths began in late 82. They went and they accelerated, and then let me see the last one here. I think they went up to like 1987, 88. So you've got virtually a decade just under of. But the point is, these deaths were hugely, I mean, they were just bizarre. I mean, I've read 2 out there, so think about that. You've got one who left his wife and went to electrocute himself by his fillings. You've got another one that pulled his head off. Well, they're just as weird as that, and so that's the point.
How do they relate to Marconi?
Because they all worked for Marconi.
Okay, got it. Now, can you give us a little bit more about the history of Marconi and what it does? What's the purpose of Marconi? It's a telecommunications operation, right, or a little more?
Yeah, I can go into, but I don't know. I'm trying to do a sort of a basic rundown of just the deaths at the moment. But it's just, that's, I know, but that's like Patrick. That's like me.
sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you there, but what I was going to say is Marconi was basically one of the first people. Well, it wasn't. It was a chap called Lodge, apparently, who did the first radio transmission, but they claim it was Marconi that did the first radio transmission. And that was it, basically. And from there on, they made radios and stuff for the defence people. That's it. Nutshell.
Yeah. Okay, but Patrick, my point is, it's like me saying, it's like me asking you what. Well, I say, well, all right, Patrick. So in America, what do Halliburton do? It's like, well, they can say, oh, well, they've got a charity side where they go and give haste to old grannies, but underneath, do you know, well, who the fuck knows what they're doing? They're doing all sorts of dodgy drug trafficking.
How about General Electric or Edison? Yeah. Something like that.
Well, actually, you make a good link there, because GEC, who sneakily came, and again, this is a bit weird, came and took over. Marconi expanded in 83, 84, and joined with a company called Plessy, which is another basic old age pension sort of electronic advanced British company. And then who sweeps in around about the time? GEC from America, and take over both Marconi and these. And this is what have we seen? We've seen all this stuff that big corporations and GEC, if ever there's a company that's involved in free energy dodginess, nuclear power, as you know, all and dodgy other stuff, and all these companies, just like BlackRock and all the other stuff, just when the more money and influence they got, means that when you say to me, well, what do Marconi do? Well, I'll tell you, in the 20s, like Eric said, then it was Marconi with just the guy from Italy doing these lovely, like with Tesla, radio transmissions to see who's going to break the record, who's going to get the first telegram, who's going to get the first transmission from Britain in Cornwall over to Massachusetts, I think it was, in America. So all that's great in the sort of 50s and 60s. But then, something happened in the 60s, and after JFK's assassination, and all these efforts came in, right, and started taking over our corporations, much like we now have the culmination of BlackRock, and the same happened with Marconi. So, with Marconi, I can tell you what they dealt with as far as underwater torpedoes, because this guy, he goes into it, and this was his theory. He's like, I
had some in the mix. Sorry, I didn't mean to come in here, but chime in. But that's life, but not as we know it. It's mentioned something very interesting. Suicide cannot be ruled out, given the work being carried out. With that said, some of the cases are straight up murder. I looked into it.
Oh, you found something I've never found. If you've heard that.
Yes, that's life, but not as we know it. Said that, not me. That is.
I see. Sorry, that's a comment, right?
Yeah, comment in the chat. It's not me.
All right,
so straight up murder.
No, and that's life is dead right, but the problem is that when these poor relatives came and said, well, years after, well, please tell us why my husband's son, father, wife, there were women involved in this too, my academic from Oxford, all suddenly kill themselves in bizarre ways. Please tell us why. Then that happened. They were saying, it was suicide from they were so stressed from the usual. But you look at the patterns of which I did, and I've got a breakdown of this. Look at the patterns of the suicide stroke deaths in, or even mental health breakdowns in the defense industry in the 10 years before and the 10 years after. I can send you a graph on this. This graph goes like this, right? Straight, right? The graph for the Marconi era of 82 to 89 goes like this. The other times, it's as I said, fishermen kill themselves more than defense contractors, right? So that's it. But anyway, yeah. So with Patrick's thing, I could tell you about Marconi and stuff, but it's my belief that all these big companies, and again, the US was dominating the world as far as this whole high technology area. But don't forget, Britain. What have we heard with Britain's always had? What have we had with America? A special. It's like, yeah, boring. A special relationship, right? They mentioned that, and I think this is code. This special relationship. As well as the Commonwealth Five Eyes thing, where we're now linked to New Zealand, Australia, and we have a special, because people have to remember, with America, we do all the spying for them. It all happens just up the road from me, right? We do the spying for because Americans can't spy on their own citizens, right? So we do all the spying on domestic citizens on our little islands, right? We do all that. So you've got to think they've got some very close ties with the USA. But anyway, Eric, do you mind if because I'm going to finish here? Right, I want to finish, if you don't mind, in 7 minutes, because I've got to get up at 6 a.m. in the morning, I'm afraid. But I will. Can I just? Do you mind if I read out? Do you mind if I read out? Right. Okay. Right. And this is not the most detailed list. I'm going to try and pick out some of the. Let's put my granddad light on here with my poor eyesight. Right. Okay. So So these are the 23 people I've researched over the 12 years. And I guarantee you won't find any other industry in any other country where this amount of people have died in such a short time from the same industry. I guarantee you. You can chop my little finger off, right, if you can find that, right? So here we go. And Eric, if you want to have me on again, we can go on perhaps to the final person, which is called Victor Moore, who is a satellite expert. And remember what I said, what happened when they brought this technology back from the weird Antarctic Falklands area? They tried to start dealing with it, and eventually, as a sideline, they started to learn how to instruct it via computer programming signals. They learned to control this stuff to a degree, but in the meantime, it caused a lot of havoc with our satellites and probably many other things we don't know about. This guy was called Victor Moore, and I got to know his partner and his wife, and the stuff she's told me is astonishing, right? But so anyway, he was one of the most senior scientists at Marconi, and it seemed like a lovely guy. But again, he killed himself from. This is a guy that didn't even take a drink, and he died of a drug overdose. I mean, this is ridiculous. People in their 50s and 60s in these hugely paid defense firms, certainly in that era, maybe not now, don't go out and take drugs that are going to kill. They just don't. It just doesn't happen, right? Didn't find an injection mark on him. Don't find anything. I think in his toxicology report, there's so many of these I forget. Okay, let me just run through 10 of these or whatever. Right, Keith. So these are all Marconi, and these are top-ranking people. Right, 1982, Falklands War finished in 1982. Dr. Keith Bowden, right? These are all high-ranking top academics or scientists. His car plunged off a bridge, and it was ruled as a drink driving accident. Well, so you can say, right, well, you can have a drink driving accident, right, and crash into a lamppost, but do you plunge off a bridge as well? Okay, so Roger Hill, again, probably a middle class sort of person. I'm adding a bit of drama in for effect here, but I don't need it really with these things. He was a Marconi radar design engineer, and he died of his own shotgun at home. Well, and again, just so happened that he got that pissed off in 1982. Sorry, this was 1985 that he shot himself with his shotgun. Right? Never before, and didn't want to do it before. Just happened at that moment. And the Jonathan Walsh, who I don't know much about, a lot of these people I do, some I don't. He fell from a hotel room in Azerbaijan. Whatever he was doing in that shithole, I don't know. But anyway, he fell off the roof. Was he pushed or did he fall? Who knows? Here's an interesting one. And sorry for the Indian name. Vimal Daji Bahai in 1986. He happened to jump, and this is an Asian computer programmer. I know a lot of sort of Asians in this sort of area. I met a lot of college, and they're all quite straight, normal people. They're all quite, I don't know. If you're a computer programming nerd, the last thing you're going to do is go and jump off a huge suspension bridge. He jumped from the Bristol suspension bridge. Now that's a high bridge. I've driven over it several times.
I remember that one.
Oh, do you see? And see, Eric, as I said, then some of these probably leaked into the news, but and so many of us remember the odd thing about these deaths, but the genius that these state intelligence people have had with this, and that's why I'm surprised my car has not gone into a ditch and been on many trips, because I'm the only one that seems to be looking at this these days. But what the genius that they've had is that despite you, like you, Eric, having a relative and remembering something about that, and then also seeing the odd thing in the news, and I remember the odd sort of thing. But the genius they've had is they've tampered down, and they've made us all forget about the fact it wasn't just one weird death. There were like 23, 24, 25 of these things. So yeah, and anyway, when they found him, they found a bit of dodgy, weird stuff going on. For a start, his trousers were down, which is like, oh. So did he have a cottaging? Is that the word? No. Did he have some sort of homosexual meeting and then jump off a bridge? And I mean, a lot of this was staged to look very strange. But okay. Oh, here's the guy that did the rope thing. His name is they had many Indian computer programs. Arshad Sharif, 1986, decapitated rope from car to tree. So yeah, there you go. If you want to look that one up, Arshad Sharif, that's the guy. I mean, imagine being a police officer and having to turn up and find that sort of thing where someone's pulled their own head off. And imagine that the car is probably still there with a headless corpse in it. I mean, just mental. But did that make the papers? Not really, right? And not since. Has it made any documentary since? No. What you got to ask yourself, what is going on when such weird shit is going on? But it's not been covered by. We've had all sorts of documentaries on all sorts of stuff, but nothing on this area. Okay, right, hang on, right, blah blah blah. Case unresolved. Okay, here's the classic one as well. I mean, there was a guy from MI5 recently that ended up in a suitcase, but he also had a plastic bag around him. He was from MI5, and that was so Richard Pugh, very British name, found bound in a plastic bag ruled sexual misadventure. They love that one. They love a bit of sexual misadventure, right? Mark Weiser, right? And another one, Mark Weiser, 1985, asphyxiation by a cling film and a bag, right? Cling film in a bag, okay? David Sands, and I played, thanks Patrick, we played the video of David Sands. What it didn't say there, they said his car was full of, why would you load what sort of death is it? He loaded his car up with what the Americans call gas, we call petrol, but also he turned them on, Eric, what do we call them? What's gas in Britain? Is it propane? What do we call what color gas?
Okay.
Anyway,
Colour gas,
cooking gas. I don't know. Anyway, that gas that we used to have when you didn't have a gas supply in Britain. So he had his boot full of these containers and some. Why? It's not a nice way to die. You don't want to crash into something and then you car it and you burn it. It's not a nice way to. Why would you do that? It's the same with the electrocution with the teeth in the garden shed. So what was going on? Well, if you have me on a few more times, I'll go on to my theory that's taken 10, 12 years to come out about what I think was going on, right? Anyway, yeah, then you've got 3 here, all English names, all David Skeels, Trevor Knight, Peter Peebell, all with carbon monoxide poisoning, okay? So that's, you can say, well, silly buggers, they left their faulty, dodgy heater on, right? Another one from BAE Systems, British Aerospace, that also died from carbon monoxide poisoning. A guy that crashed into a car barrier, a car crash again, military science student. Someone ploughed into the River Mersey. Well, there's another one named George Katunis. Sounds a bit Greek, right? And then David Greenhow jumped from a bridge, survived. Oh, this is the funny one. So I looked into this and I tried to contact his sister, but I'm not surprised she wouldn't talk to me. David Greenhow he jumped from a bridge trying to commit suicide, survived, and then killed himself again the next day. I don't know how many people who commit suicide. Well, perhaps they do, but you got to think of that. You jump off a bridge. How harrowing and traumatizing must that be? Your family are going, "What the f did you do that for?" And then you kill yourself the next day, or did you kill yourself, or did someone else kill yourself? Okay, okay. Last 2 or 3. Shani Warren, a female, bound, gagged, and drowned, and ruled suicide. Right? I don't know how you bound and gag yourself and then gets ruled suicide. Who ties you up, for God's sake? Who does that? Right? Frank Jennings, a heart attack. He was a Plessey engineer. Plessey, as I mentioned when Pratchett mentioned GC, Plessey was linked to Marconi. That was their sort of sister company. Alistair Beckham, he's the guy. So if you think I'm lying here, right, about the garden shed guy, his name is Alistair Beckham, spelt like the footballer in Britain. Alistair Beckham, electrocuted in garden shed. John, there we go. I've forgotten this one. John Ferry, electrocuted via dental wiring. Well, is that the same thing? Maybe I've got the two confused there. And then my favourite, and the guy that I know the most about, and the guy that I can go into a lot more, that then sheds a lot more light on this area, and it becomes astonishing and becomes jaw-dropping, is Victor Moore, who had he's the satellite expert at Marconi, senior guy. So high up in Marconi, it's astonishing. He was a satellite expert, but he died of a drug overdose. Just the poor guy. I'm almost getting teared up here because I've looked. These people are almost individuals to me because I've sort of looked at their history for so long. And some of these, I know some of their families. So even mentioning Victor Moore's name, I started getting a bit choked up. Anyway, so that's it. I hope that's all right. If you want me on again, I've got to go, Eric. But if you want to have me on again, I'm happy to come on and we can go into the tech bar, right?
Well, look, we've got to keep this momentum going because it's fresh in people's minds. So if we, leave it several weeks, it'll be out of their minds, and we've got to recoup. We got to actually, when I say recoup, we've got to summarise what we've got to so far. There's a slot next Sunday if you're free.
I'm going to really learn them. As I said, I've got a parent that's ill. I'm having to drive a long way every week. So yeah, no. I'm not blaming. What I'm saying is, the problem is, I have to take turns with my cousins at dealing with what is now a very sick person. So I don't always know what I'm doing. So let you know. I'm happy. I'm happy to come on and do 2 hours where I can. If I'm already down in that part of the Midlands instead of Yorkshire, I will happily come on and do this. This is a couple of hours. It's easy, and I enjoy it. And I thank you, Eric, and I thank you, Steve, for being part of this. So I'm happily come on again. I'm afraid tomorrow I'm getting up. I've got to do bloody work at 6 a.m. So I've got to go. Otherwise, I'm going to be grumpy in the morning and stuff. So I'm going to go now. But get in touch with me, Eric, and we'll have a chat.
Thanks for coming on the show. Sorry I had to sort of interrupt, but we had to keep people sort of, like, for instance, Americans didn't know what Marconi was and different things like that. So we had to put people in the picture. But we'll have a chat in the week and we'll sort something out.
Yeah, and it will, and even if you think now, well, what is, like, Patrick quite rightly said, well, what is Marconi? Well, it all becomes a bit clearer as you find out a bit more of what goes on. But it's a big story, and it takes a long time to, 12 years of work. It takes a long time to sort of tell. But the story is fascinating. Which you've got to say, if I leave anyone with anything tonight, is why is no one else? Why has this thing? Why is it evaporated? Is it some weird mind up? Why is this whole area where 25, 23 people end up with bizarre deaths? You've heard them all. I've just read them out. Why has that not entered British consciousness or world consciousness? Why is it not? Why is that left? And why are there no documentaries or a Steven Spielberg film? It is ideal stuff for a bloody top film, but it's not. And I believe that's for a reason, because something went on in this that's so wacky that they didn't want to cover it. All right. Thank you. I'll leave it there. I appreciate it. I'll get back to you, Eric, in a couple of days.
Thank you very much for coming on, David. It's much appreciated.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome back. Okay. Now, how can I get this back where it was? Oh, here it is. We're back normal now. Well, that was interesting, wasn't it? Everybody, now, what we got, Caroline Murphy says, Eric should have a lot more viewers. Yeah, I'm shadow banned. It's a shame, as he keeps it real and his guests are always interesting. Bloody algorithms. Bless you. That's very kind. Thank you very much. That's much appreciated. Now, there's something to add into the mix with these mass suicides and things like that. Two things. One, a little humorous, which maybe it might be, but I think it can add in. Do you know where the saying, and this is linked to what we're going to say, do you know where the saying "gone for a Burton" comes from? It's an English saying. Do you have it in
Never heard it.
Country? Yeah, you say, "Oh, blimey, that's gone for a Burton." It means, I don't know, you got in the car and the engine wouldn't start and the battery blew up, or that's gone for a Burton. That's what it means. That's what it is. Now, what it was is that the RAF in the 1930s were doing work on radar, and the people that were working on it, it was so intense they started to go a little bit cuckoo in the brain. So when someone was missing from work, and they said, "Where's Fred or Bert or whoever's working on it?" and they'd say, "Oh, he's gone for a Burton," and what that meant was the psychiatrist's place was over the top of Burton's tailoring. There was a famous tailor in this country. So instead of saying, well, they've gone to see the psychiatrist, out of politeness, they say, well, he's gone for a Burton. And that's where it came from. That's true. It sounds a joke, but it's actually true. But these suicides, it is. I remember it. I remember it very clearly. Does anybody else remember it? Steve, Roll Hanorak, do you remember it all?
Vaguely, I remember parts of that. Not massively.
But I don't remember much of it either. But I was trying to find something. I was having a little read while that guy was chatting, and I was just trying to find some details on the people who had been killed, and trying to find the dates. But there's hardly anything. There's no information, no Wikipedia, or nothing. So they obviously want to keep it quiet, whatever it was.
Well,
that's why I wanted to get a few more, like a timeline set up of what he was discussing.
Yes.
Make it into a storyline that we can go follow. This point happened here, that point happened there, because the Falklands is what he was talking about. Something went on down there. There was some sort of laboratory. The information about it got out to the Marconi people, and then they started having these weird deaths. So I got that much, and it was around 82.
But there's also, I remember, they didn't have any. They had satellite technology then, quite well-established satellite technology, but we didn't see any live photography from the Falkland Islands during the war. And people said, and the official statement was that they couldn't because there was a problem with the satellites. And
hence Marconi might have had something to do with it.
Your guess is as good as mine. But it's
they were dealing with communications equipment.
Yeah.
That was how they got started.
That's right.
I would imagine they had a lot to do with it.
Yes. Was it spring equinox? 19th, and that's very interesting, Steve. Yeah.
You would have noticed I've put a fair few comments about some of the dates and events. Yeah, I noticed you'd put them up,
Yeah.
and hopefully the viewers would have noticed some of these dates and numbers cropping up. Simply because, as I've said many times before, and on your podcasts as well, that wars are satanic rituals, whether by default or by design. I would largely say by design. Certainly, the dates that they instigate certain things are done by design, and it's usually to coincide with the spring equinox, which again is massively important. And you can go through loads of events in recent history, even warfare events in recent history, which demonstrate this. March the 19th, March the 22nd. April the 1st is another one. May the 1st, Beltane, that's cropped up again. Even the names, if I can just go back to the fact that the operation in the Falklands was known as Operation Corporate. Corporate, why is it called corporate? Because in Gematria that equates to number 666. If you
corporate. So what? Wait, what does the word corporate have to do with Falklands?
The Falklands, the campaign in the Falklands is known by like a code name, and the code name for that is Operation Corporate.
Who determines the code name?
Well, apparently they come up on at random on a computer program. That's the official kind of guidance. But the Argentinians had their own operational code name, which was codename Rosario. Rosario roughly translates to the Virgin Mary.
Okay.
Which
like the Rosary.
Biblical type.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of Catholics down in Argentina. Like I said, a lot of Italians.
Yeah.
A lot of Germans as well, especially after 1945. Yep. And now, first of all, do you believe Mr. H with moustache escaped to Argentina?
Who are you asking?
A big deal was made about him being killed in the bunker. So who knows? It's like any of these things. You can let your imagination go wild, or you can just believe the facts that were reported. But I don't know. I've heard people talk with Harry Cooper before. He's the one that wrote the book Hitler in Argentina, where they drugged him and forced him over to Argentina. But
the other one was Operation Winnie the Pooh, which I don't believe. And apparently he went to Spain and then went from Spain by submarine to Argentina. Well, I don't think that, because he hated, what's his name? Who was the chap in Spain now? It was,
Franco?
Franco's, thanks, mate. That's much appreciated. So I had a senior moment there. He hated Franco's guts, and he said that in his writings, he said he'd rather have his teeth pulled out without anaesthetic than meet Franco. And Franco couldn't stand him either. They detested each other. So I'm just wondering how, there's loads and loads of theories, like he was seen getting on a submarine in Norway. There was loads of them.
Operation Paperclip was one of them, wasn't it? They talked about.
No, Operation Paperclip was where they got all the scientists back to America to work on the Apollo, or the space program as it was before the Apollo.
There were a lot that fled down to like the Boys of Brazil. That was a film about it with Gregory Peck.
Very loose that was, because there's parts of Argentina that look like Bavaria, and there's areas that are very German speaking, and a lot of the ex-Luftwaffe high-ups built or helped to rebuild the Argentinian Air Force. People don't realise that. A lot of their test pilots were German. So,
and wasn't there a Hitchcock movie that took place in South America where they had some sort of secret weapon or formula that they hid in wine bottles? And I think it was Ingrid Bergman was in it. Okay.
But Alice Gould just comes up with an interesting one here. Do you class someone saying you're dead a threat to kill? Well, depends on how it's put. My next door neighbour doesn't like women sticking up for themselves, doesn't he? He's a bloke. Well, I don't know. It depends on how it's meant, really. It's a bit like the word basket. You could say that soppy old basket walking down the road, or you could say I've got a
If
basket full of fruit.
if somebody's using terminology like that, I would class that as a deliberate and direct threat. That doesn't mean that it's intentional, but you can't determine somebody's motives. And certainly, if they're using language like that, that's threatening.
It
That's
is.
violence.
That's a
And
bit spooky. Sorry, Steve. Carry on, mate. Sorry.
no worries. But I mean, I wouldn't be impressed if somebody used words like that to me. But again, I don't know what the situation is. So
Interesting, you were saying about with regards to the gematria stuff as well, that the Falklands War lasted for 2 months, 1 week, and 6 days, which is 216, or 6 times 6 times 6 equals 216. And it was also works out to be 73 days, which links to ritual sacrifice in gematria. So there's always, it's not by coincidence at all.
I'm no military person. I've never been in the military, but I do believe that the Falklands was a bit like the D-Day, like that. Cross fingers, just about. I mean, I didn't realise how close D-Day was to fouling, and Eisenhower wrote a letter in case it did foul, where he would sort of resign and sort of metaphorically fall on his soul, but not physically. But it was very close, and the Falklands was very, very close, especially when they lost a lot of shipping in that bay. But I do remember before the Falklands War, I mean, my parents were still alive then, and they're all in the newspapers. They said the British troops were using high tech equipment, and it'll be over in no time at all, and blah blah blah. And my dad, I remember him smiling. He used to call my mum Love. He said, "I think we've heard that one before, Love, haven't we?" And he said, my mum said, "Yes." She said, "Just like the Second World War." He said, "You mark my words, it won't be as technical as they say." And within a couple of weeks, what did you see in that bay? A bloke with a Second World War machine gun tied with a lump of rope to the balustrade of the ship, going boom, 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 like the jet planes flying across. I think St. Carlos Bay, wasn't it? And but Dad said, "High tech, isn't it? High tech." He said, "No, it's crude." I mean, did you find that, Steve? You had some equipment, but a lot of it was a bit crude. Did you find that?
Right, you mean like war fighting equipment?
Well, but my dad said that the newspapers hype it up that it's going to be absolutely, super duper all the way. But for the average soldier on the ground, I mean, what did I see? As I said, it's a First World War. I think it was a Lewis gun tied with a lump of rope to the balustrade of a ship, and there was a
Right.
bloke
Okay. Yeah.
firing at this jet as it's
Yeah.
firing. He said, my dad looked round sarcastically and said, "High tech, isn't it?" I've never forgotten that.
There's definitely technological advances into equipment and clothing, everything, but the thing is still the same. It's a bunch of blokes shooting at each other or throwing things or aeroplanes or other forms of platforms which fire off munitions. The things are the same. I mean, going back to your point you made earlier about D-Day, for example, it could have been a technical failure, or it was touch and go whether it was going to work or not. In essence, that's not the point. No, the only people who care whether it works or not is the people watching it on TV. Obviously, the guys on the ground, the soldiers, the military staff who conduct warfare, but the planners, the real planners, the occultocracy behind it all, don't care at all. They only care about the strategic effects, which is is there sufficient blood spilled on the ground to as a sacrament to their satanic holy dates and plans, and if and when things aren't going to plan, well, they'll just pull some other stunts to direct their efforts into making the strategic plans work, which was what World War One and World War Two was about. And the same with World War III, which we're all in.
You're spot on, Steve, because, I mean, my dad found out after D-Day that Montgomery expected his division to be completely wiped out. That's what the plan was. But they would get help to gain a foothold for the second wave of troops that are coming in. That's what their job.
Mhm.
And that's why the men on the first wave were exhausted. They'd been on two previous invasions, Sicily and Italy, and through the siege of Malta, and a lot of them were patched up wounded because they knew, and the attitude, they knew it, was that there would be a burden on wealth on the state after the war to finish them off, because they called them seasoned troops. Is that term still used now, Steve? Seasoned troops, people that's been in battle a lot of times, and they keep them.
I don't hear that word specifically. I mean, it's a few years now since I've left, so what the lingo is, I bet it's never changed. But I don't recall using that one or hearing it. But you're aware of, if you've been in conflict, you are certainly, people understood or appreciate the experience of people who had been in combat with whatever terminology was used. I don't think it was the word seasoned.
I think, though, that maybe, I don't know, but the treatment of post-traumatic stress disorder, which was known as shell shock, is probably far better now than it was. I think they've now identified. I mean, they didn't even know what it was in the First World War. And they put poor sods up against a wall and shoot them. So
yeah, I guess so. I mean, obviously, I'm 100% opposed to all military in every country in the world. All military should be abolished. Every single soldier who's serving needs to wake up, get themselves educated, and realize the bigger picture behind it. Not the political picture, the sinister agenda that overrides the political objectives, because this is all absolute horse manure. You're all taking part in an organized satanic religion. You're cannon fodder you are basically just soul dead. This is soldiers. Soldiers are just soul dead entities who then need to spill blood on the ground as part of their ritual. And that sounds crazy and that's why I say people need to really do some deep diving education on the dark.
Oh, mate. You're absolutely spot on. Stephen Truthseek has put a question to you. April 15th, Hillsborough sacrifice. Steve, do you think there's a connection with the Southport attack and Taylor Swift playing at Anfield? The Liverpool car attack, the Liverpool player, Jotia? I don't know.
That's a good question. I mean, April the 15th is an interesting date in itself. It's very much ties into the Feast of Moloch. And it's interesting as well that Hillsborough uses the owl insignia, the logo on the football strips, etc. That's quite interesting in itself. But in terms of the connection, I'm just looking at it written down. Nice one, Paul. But in terms of the connection, I can't define a connection there because I simply haven't looked into it. I mean, I do find the Southport event suspicious. Very suspicious. The fact that it was linked to Taylor Swift as well, again, that adds to that suspicion. But what we do have to remember is we tend to think of things as being organic without any form of, and I'm talking about high-level religious priest class strategy being involved into certain things. We don't tend to consider as well something called chaos sorcery, and we don't tend to consider as well that the world, the reality that we understand it, is not just a physical realm, it's also a spiritual realm. So when we see the amalgamation of physical effects with things like gematria, and when Paul's putting numbers up, a lot of people just think, well, this is just a coincidence or nonsense or bunk. These things, you can prove these numbers, you can see the effects repeatedly, you can run the scientific theories on how this comes about.
D-Day is a perfect example of that. 6 a.m., 6th day of the 6th month, that kind of stuff going on.
That's what my dad predicted. I think it's 15 months before it happened, using numerology.
So what was the deal with Taylor Swift? Explain that to me, because it's interesting. My brother is on the same team as the fiance to Taylor Swift.
Okay. Well, Taylor Swift was, I think, the theme of it was some sort of dance.
Okay, now I know. They had the riots afterward.
Yeah, that's right. So I think this was a Taylor Swift dance competition or something along those lines at this place in Southport.
Summer 2024.
Yeah. So to me, it was. I mean, I'm not saying that this didn't happen because, and this is a lot of things which a lot of researchers or maybe conspiracists will say as well, that, because of the numbers, because of the dates, then this thing didn't happen at all, or people didn't really die and they used dummies, etc., etc.
Well, it's interesting that Tommy Robinson was arrested not long after that, because they held some sort of protests that he was involved in,
right.
And then he went into hiding over in Cyprus or somewhere like that.
So there's two things to consider as well. It's something called MIHOP and LIHOP. Make it happen on purpose, let it happen on purpose. But failing that, there's also organic events which just happen, or events in reality can be doctored by the use of chaos sorcery. And again, most people will just scoff at that and think, well, this is utter bunk. But again, this is why people need to be more educated on occult themes, because we'll see that we as the general population do not understand reality. So that's why the majority of people in the world get the wool pulled over their eyes, because we don't understand how time, events, and places work in accordance to the spiritual and material combination. So we look at the world as a material construct and nothing else, whereas the sorcerers of this world understand the spiritual effects and will manipulate it.
Yeah, and they study it every day. That's their job.
Right. And let's face it, when you've got the sort of money that the controllers have, where it's no object, you can pay anybody off to do anything, really. And I mean, they're above the law. And DJB to us said blood sacrifice to the entities that John Dee, that's right, he was around in the Elizabethan times, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Used to contact through scrying mirror.
Scrivian. Yeah.
Scrivian, sorry, yes.
Yeah, it's a thing of, they call it hydromancy, where you take, an example of this would be like you take a bowl of water and put a candle in it, and you put cards all around it, and then the lighted candle, the wax all forms into one spot, and that's, you then tell the future based on that, where the cards are lined up with the wax. It's really occultish type stuff that he was doing to determine army moves.
Really? Well, to go on to what Steve was saying, it does the numerologists. I mean, I decode this stuff all the time when I get time. I sit and decode the news on a regular basis. So things like the Southport was, as far as I'm concerned, it was there to control people's minds, to get people angry, to try and get us to where we are now. All events link, one event links into something else, They're not by accident, they are. Whether they actually take place is another question. Because I remember when the Southport thing took place, and I said to somebody at work, I said, I'm sure, my guess is it's a place called Meals Cop, because they talked about a police station. Well, there's a place called Meals Cop in Southport. And as soon as I went onto the news article, that's where it was. I thought, that's not by...
Wasn't there a deal that happened in Manchester just before that, where it was a Muslim that had his face stomped in by a cop? Do you remember that? I think it was right after that.
Manchester Airport. Was it Manchester Airport?
Yeah,
that rings a bell. Yeah. And the Liverpool riot thing, where that bloke apparently ran some people over.
That was this year.
That was to do. That was linked to the football final for the year, because it was it Liverpool that won ultimately. I don't know. I don't follow football, but it was linked. It was linked to that.
Yeah, I remember that. It was a car that went crazy and plowed into.
Well, all the events seemed all linked to it. They do. I say I decode this stuff when I get a chance, quite
and
frequently.
Jojo, I'm terribly sorry. Please carry on, Paul. I must apologise. I'm very rude there. Cut in.
Well, Jojo Gizmo's right. Yeah, the police van or the police vehicle they showed had got a 33 on it, and there was no pictures of the individual did the running over, even though there was thousands of people there, and apparently there was some footage of this guy in his car as he approached all the people to try and run them over, and one of his doors came open on this car, and he took the time to shut the door. Well, if you're trying to run people over, surely having the door open to give you a bit more, get 2 more people with it if you've got the doors open. Do you know what I mean? It's just, yeah, it's all staged. That's my opinion.
It sounds like, Richard D. Hall was looking into this, and he said that these people that sort of go out shooting, people go on a mass shooting situation, they seem to be in a trance. They sort of walk around as if they're like a Manchurian candidate. They're sort of being
they're kind of
controlled by something.
Tavistock Institute type.
Yeah.
Shell shock, like you said, it stems from that research.
That's right. Yeah.
Where they'd then try to make them even more psychotic, and then be able to go out and have assassin squads go in with these crazy people leading it and diverting attention.
Of course, the thing with the mass shootings, in particular in America, is to try and get the American people to give up their guns. Because if you've got, I'm allowed to say, obviously too late I've said it, the G word. If you've got a load of
more guns, because it has the opposite reaction most of the time.
Because if you've got a load of people who are armed, they're not going to be quite so easy to control. So if they can get you to give up arms, all of a sudden you become easy to control, and that's what all these mass shootings are about. It's to try and get people to think, oh well, I'll give up this rifle.
Well, part of the problem though with that is when it happened, people just went out and bought guns because they were in a state where they're gonna take away our guns, so let's go out and buy more guns. Yeah, it almost has a different effect too if you look on the opposite side of that spectrum.
Alice Gorgeous said, Hillsborough is close to my heart. It is beyond doubt that it was ritualistic. I couldn't possibly answer on that one, but I think you might have something to say, Paul.
Ritualistic.
Yeah.
So that's the dance school, Hillsborough. Yes. Okay.
No, that was the football.
Oh, the football. The football. Okay. The Liverpool football one, or is it a different one?
This was a football. It was an accident. Accident. I say accident. It was like a crowd surge at the football club, wasn't it? Where a lot of people actually died from asphyxiation, got crushed.
Yeah. Same as what happened with the Bethnal Green disaster with World War II, where crowds were turned, and there's one surge going one way, one going the other way, and people just trampled underfoot.
Was that near London?
No, the Anfield, that was up north somewhere, but the Bethnal Green disaster, that was in London. That was the east end of London. That was during World War II. But the Anfield
Sheffield.
Hillsborough, Sheffield. Thanks, mate. But Alice Gorgeous says it's all used to harvest the fear energies. Yep. Good point. Very, very good point there.
That's what they live on.
That's right. We're getting very
serious. Well, that's how you start wars. You get people fearful of death, and then you convince them to go and fight some enemy that the oligarch plutocrats want taken out.
Yes. Well, Taylor Swift played at Anfield, this is Stephen Truthseeker, about 6 weeks before the Southport attacks. Anfield isn't that far from Southport.
Okay, so Southport was the dance school.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
The three girls.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Go ahead.
No, you speak back, right?
Well, it's interesting because I've kind of looked into, since my brother plays for the Chiefs, I've looked into the owner and his family, and his name was H.L. Hunt. He's the grandfather of the current owner of the Kansas City Chiefs. but he's implicated in commissioning. Not only was he the biggest funder of Lyndon Baines Johnson during his presidential run, but he also is said to have been responsible for the JFK assassination in Dallas, Texas, and then over in California, his brother Bobby's assassination, and then Martin Luther King's assassination. And then not only that, his businesses. He was the richest man in the world. H.L. Hunt was back in the 30s and 40s because he had invested in the East Texas oil fields. So he had tremendous amount of wealth and promoted media companies here. But I just find it interesting, the connection between Taylor Swift and the current player on the Chiefs team, and the connection with the Hunt family, because the Hunt family in America here, his son ended up forming the Super Bowl, which is the biggest sporting event in America. Everybody watches the Super Bowl, especially like for the halftime show, but it's the biggest sporting event in America. And his son started it in Dallas, Texas. They had two teams in Dallas, and they couldn't do that by rules, so he had to move on, and he started the Kansas City Chiefs. He moved the Dallas Texans out of Dallas, but then Hunt kept his oil operations going in Dallas, and he had all sorts of businesses. He had the largest cattle ranch in America, and he also, lots of farmland. He owned the most amount of farmland, I think, of anybody in America. So he is a very rich individual, tied to a lot of big businesses, a lot of agribusinesses and petroleum businesses. And he preferred to keep them not unionized. So when you had different people start to unionize employment, going on strike and that sort of thing, he had a big incentive to get rid of the problem people. So anytime there would be someone trying to unionize a business that wasn't unionized previous, they'd go in, he'd send assassins into the town, and they'd just get rid of them. And he's implicated in Jimmy Hoffa's death. Jimmy Hoffa was head of the Teamsters Union, which was the biggest union in America. So I just find it interesting that this team, the team owner being his grandson, the star football player happens to be the fiance of Taylor Swift. Where it's very interesting. You look at these divas, they have them in every country, and they're all different according to the culture. But each country has their own diva that they promote. Yeah, you ever notice that like Katy Perry's and all these other type of people, and it just kind of like the crown gets passed on to somebody next in line as time goes on.
In other words, a slapper, as we call them, old slapper.
Right.
But Baby with a Laser said, he's answering Stephen Treesiger, says, Arena
Grande,
and the Manchester Arena bombing, the one Richard D. Hall is being hounded for. Yes, poor old Richard. He is being hounded because he's looked into the Manchester bombings. He found out that things are not quite what we're told. And
you had that guy who was crying into his phone.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
And people are laughing at him. It's like,
that's right.
There's supposed to be a mass shooting, and people are laughing at the guy.
One thing you're never going to get in when it comes into the legal system or the law system, you're never going to get any of these barristers, solicitors, lawyers who are going to actually take anything regarding the occult seriously at all. They'll laugh in your face or declare you an imbecile. Yet many of these events can be certainly explained as being very peculiar. And when you see certain symbols and numbers and dates being used repeatedly, then you know there's some form. In fact, let's just call it for what it is. Let's just call it a pattern. And if there's a pattern occurring, there is usually some sort of reason for that. So Manchester was 22-year-old gentleman bomber, 22 victims. And I think there was another 22 involved because it was on the 22nd. And I mean, that's 3 22s already. Oh, that's 322. That's an interesting number for a kickoff. We can see that.
Say it was.
Yeah.
Sorry, Steve. So the Manchester bombings took place on the day leaving 223 in the year, which is 322 in the or Skull and Bones, basically. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, there's loads of examples of this, absolutely loads. I mean, I do presentations on all these numbers. I've got presentations just on the 19th of April. What happened on the 19th of April, the Feast of Moloch? What happened on the 22nd of March? And I can do an hour-long presentation on events which you could say, well, these are ritualistic in
Yeah, they correspond to the ancient calendars of, say, like the Hebrews, that sort of thing.
Because that's one of the laws of the universe, the law of correspondence. And this is why, I mean, I tell people all the time, if you don't understand, let's just say the word occult, the hidden language of the universe, if we don't understand the occult, we don't understand fully the nature of the universe. That's why we're at loggerheads, wondering what's going on all the time. And when some of these events happen which are a little bit strange and we've got questions and we see certain patterns, but we're still scratching our heads. The reason for that is we simply don't understand the laws of nature and the way that the laws of nature can be manipulated by those in the know.
Or the people in the know are trying to manipulate nature, and they have their own formulas, they think, like magical formulas they think they've created, and they keep trying to control nature with these formulas. So you see these coincidences when they try to stage an event, let's say, or distraction.
Stephen Truseeker said to you, Steve, that there wasn't a surge. I guess he's talking about Hillsborough. I was at Hillsborough, and Alice Gorgeous said, Stephen, they opened the gate and allowed it. Did you see the new seating contract involved? Also, Professor Philip Stratton's talks on it, the ripple effect. Yes, I mean, Stephen, it must have been horrendous. I got a ticket for Hillsborough a few days before the match, when there was no chance of getting one. They wanted me dead at Hillsborough. Someone at my dad's work gave me a ticket.
Oh.
And Alice Gorgeous, that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, that's interesting.
And my lawyer did know, Steve. That's interesting. Now, Alice Gorgeous says, is that my mate Nathan, whose face we can't see? Hey? Okay. No, what we got on tonight is we've got here Steve, we've got Patrick, and Hanorak. And that's it, really. The Royal Anorak. So that's it. That's all that's on here. So Nathan's not on tonight. There's two Nathans. There's Nathan Allenby, and there's Nathan Lucius, the man who wrote a famous book, Fake Awake. You see, available. Very good book it is. Yes, excellent book.
Hey, speaking of books, I'm promoting books this evening, as you can see. This one's a very good one. Buy that one, folks. 15 quid, change your life.
And who wrote it? Was it you?
No, it's Lark and Rose wrote that.
This is Lark and Rose.
Yeah, so that's one of the books I recommend on my channel.
How did Brighton go? Because you was up there, down there rather, having talks, wasn't you? I mean,
I was, yeah. What lovely people at Brighton. A big shout out to Fern if she's listening, and the Brighton crew. I had a really excellent day and was in excellent company. Yeah, some real, Brighton's a gorgeous place, by the way.
It is, yes. And do you see the pavilion, which is the very, very interesting, which looks like something out of India when it wasn't,
No, I saw that big, I don't know what it's called. Actually, I do. Is it called the Brighton Eye? The big, tall column and it's like a viewing pod.
Oh no,
You
this
can
this is
go
the.
up on a pod.
Oh no. This
No.
the Brighton Pavilion was made built over 100 years ago. It's all sort of it looks like something out of India, but it isn't. And
Okay.
yeah, it's called the Brighton Pavilion. But it's a pity you didn't meet Paul English, isn't it? Because he lives up the road. Shame he didn't come
Yeah,
along.
I'm sure there'll be another opportunity.
So when are your future talks? Plug.
Me, I'm actually doing survival stuff coming up next weekend. Or this
Well,
weekend coming. Down in Wales, if
really
anyone's up for it. I think the space is
interesting.
left.
And yeah, I'll put an advert on the my I'll be there on it Telegram channel.
Thank you.
Anybody's welcome to join. The details are down here. No, not in my crutch. That are down the description below. Also, you can join Steve's channel, which is,
The Occult Academy.
and also the Survive the Apocalypse.
Survive the Apocalypse with Survival Steve.
And there's Patrick, of course. He's got his own radio station, which is
holylandradio.com, and then on Telegram, t.me/holylandradio, or just Holy Land, excuse me. I think that's what it is, just Holy Land.
That's right. And of course, we're broadcasting on Radio Soapbox, which is Steve's one now, which is Paul English's one. Which welcome to everybody that's listening on there as well. And his Royal Hanorach. Have you got anything to promote apart from the 251 bus?
No, nothing to promote, nothing like that. No, just I've just dropped a couple of little bits in the chat there
Oh yes,
for
you just dropped a
Alice
couple
in
of things.
regards to Hillsborough. Let's have a
Yeah.
look at that, and whilst we're on,
Interesting.
so
Yes.
it was a Masonic ritual. That's just the starting point.
That's right. And then we got Leppings Lane. That's interesting.
That was the stand that they opened up.
I think when we get David back on again, it'd be great if our same team can be here. And I'll try and get him on next Sunday if I can, if everybody can turn up. We'll try and slow him down a little bit because he's got so much to say and he's trying to get it out in a short amount of time. And I think that it's not a criticism because he obviously knows his stuff. And I'm big guilty of that as well. I think most of us have been at some time. So I think we'll try and put the brakes on him a little bit. I think we'll try without kind of butting in. Yeah, we just like, slow down a bit because it is very interesting what he was saying. But things with coincidences. The late great Dave Starbuck used to say, "There's no such thing as a coincidence." I think he was right. It definitely.
Gematria proves that.
Well, that's right. That's right. And I actually think things are mapped out for us the way we, meant to happen. It's amazing how people's lives have changed by making a decision. Well, for example, you, Steve, in battle, you had to make decisions all the time. And if you made the wrong decision, but you made the right decisions, it's quite interesting. And tomorrow night, I haven't told Steve this, but we're going to have Product of the Week. It's a good one. We're going to try and do that every week. Product of the Week.
Sounds interesting.
Yes, and tomorrow night's Product of the Week is from Ghana, and it's a sauce. So I'm getting a little clue there. So and we're going to have also a product the week after will be from the West Indies. So there we go. Yes, I'm going around the world looking at these gorgeous products. Sorry, it's a bit of an evil laugh there, and I think you like that. And what is ours? Now we're going to have a little bit of prepping, are we, tomorrow night? What you got in mind, Steve?
Well, I'll follow your lead on that. But if you want to talk about things that go bang, if you want to talk about things that you can use for self-defense purposes, if you want to talk about anything to do with survival and prepping, or anything along that nature, how it all ties in, I'm quite happy to mention that. And if you want to add anything, again, I enjoy talking about, and I'm more than happy to talk about occult themes. So if that's of interest, I'm happy to throw that into the mix as well. I'm quite happy to to let your viewers decide, and also your kind self as well.
Well, shall we have a poll on it on Telegram, so you can vote for what it is? So let's go through that again. So 1 is survival. 2 is the things that go bang. I think we all know what you mean. Things that go bang. And what was the other ones? Survival of the occult.
Yeah. Prepping. Doomsday prepping.
Prepping, okay.
Yeah, self-defense.
Self-defense.
Or you could do a combination of the lot.
See, do you not think with where the self-defense is concerned? I mean, if I thought someone was going to come attack me, all I'd do is just play a Keir Starmer speech. Let's zoom in a mile.
To be fair, if you played anything off him, you deserve to be filled in.
Or just cough a few times and people are going to wave then and all.
My uncle was a comedian. In the 60s, judo was a new thing that people, it's a very new thing to our culture, that people were like, oh, I'm a black belt. And, the other thing was, well, I'd have mine cleaned if it was a black belt. And a little kid came up to my uncle and said, judo. My uncle said, no, just been actually. That's true. It actually did happen. Mind you wouldn't, because both my uncle and my father had commando training on, what do they call it now? Unarmed combat. So if you lost your rifle, unarmed combat, and it was bloody gory. I tell you probably know that as well. And what happened is, after just at the end of the war, what happened is my mother's aunt, her husband had got killed in the war, and her and her husband were absolutely devoted, and they had a son. He's a very young boy, and when this woman, my mother's auntie, went to pick her son up at school, he wasn't there, and the school people said, well, he's been taken home. By whom? And it turned out they'd been kidnapped by a couple that couldn't have children. And they tried to make out that because she was a single parent, she wasn't fit to look after this young boy. Now, you think she's lost her husband, and she started going mad. She really almost, she was very angry and very upset, obviously. And of course, an ambulance was called, and she was taken away and put into a psychiatric ward. Now, my uncle, who had just come out of the army then, signed to get her out of the psychiatric ward and said, don't worry, I'll get your son back, because he had such a nice way with him. And he went and visited those people and he got the son back by some means. I think we can use our imagination by some means. He never said anything about it.
Yeah.
By something. Come back.
See, when you've got people who can use their own imagination, and who needs the likes of the police when you've got people like that?
That's right. I think he might have said, "Sorry, you with the broken nose, hand me back this woman's son." To which he said, "I haven't got a broken nose." No, but I always remember he never went into it. He just said, by some means. By some means, whatever that meant, I don't know. Okay, use your imagination. Because you think, just come out of the army, absolutely, muscled, well, like yourself, understood unarmed combat. You didn't argue. Because I remember when I was a kid, we went to Hatfield House, and they used to have a First World War tank there. I was looking around it, I was interested. And my uncle and my dad, well, they were good mates, and because they're both within the same unit during the war, and they said, I was ever so young, and they said, come at me with this broomstick or something. And within seconds, I was on the floor. absolutely seconds. And my dad could still do that when he was in his 70s. He said, "Come at me with this broomstick." It was so quick. It's like,
No apologies. Just did it.
Arm over my throat, But yeah, I guess you're the same, Stevie. You've had all that training and things like that, But it's, but as I say, it always makes me chuckle. By some means, whatever that meant. It was a bit like the Queen Mother's, gynecologist. When the Queen and her sister were born, in his diary he said, the Queen and her sister, Margaret, they gave birth by some means or other.
Some means or other, huh?
Some means that work that one out for yourself. Meaning that maybe the king wasn't the father. Maybe. We will never know. Who knows? Or we may well know. Sorry.
Is that why she liked the Unigate milk? Was it the milkman who popped round?
Well, some say it was Churchill, but quite honestly, in the 20s and 30s, I think he was so drunk he couldn't even raise a smile. So I doubt whether it was Churchill. But no, who knows who the father was? It was a bit like Churchill's father. They don't know who his father was because his father actually had syphilis at the time of the conception. So, yes. So who knows? Because apparently Churchill's mother was a martini girl, anytime, any place, anywhere.
Really?
Yeah, she had a lot of friends. Anyway, Gary Garner said, "Hello, peeps. I'm 38 today. Happy birthday!
Hey,
Getting closer to the dreaded 40. I wish I was 38 again. I'm well past the 40. A little bit too far past the 40. But now, self-defence, yes. Well, Steve is Minister of the Fockham Defence because defence keeps falling over, doesn't it? So there we go. But no, really, when you think about it, I was actually looking into a YouTube video last night, which was a bit gory. They're talking about medieval warfare. Bloody Nora. They said, would you have survived? And the answer was no.
Can you imagine that? Some of those are like a mace. One of those spiky balls on a chain.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
But they said every soldier was exceptionally skilled at whatever weapon they had. So you was up against people that are very skilled. So you had knives, like you said, that thick ball on a chain, bleeding hatchets, you name it.
Mm-hmm.
They've got it. Hang on. There we go. We've got a message from David. Here it comes. And he says, if I can find it. Where is it? David. Oh, hang on. I can't bring it up on the screen. I just try to read it. He just sent me one. I can't bleed and see it. Where is it? He said, happy to come on for a full 2 hours slot. That's free, Eric. Well, that's all right, isn't it? So let's hope you come back next week, Are you all up for it, coming on with David? Be all right, wouldn't it? It's work well. Yeah, that's it. So what do you think? Do you reckon we'll do a poll or should we do a mixture of all the lot tomorrow night? Personally, I think I like mixture of all the lot, really.
Yeah, mixture, I guess. And if well, should we see how it goes? I mean, if people genuinely want to talk about one particular subject, I could.
That's right. So, well, tomorrow night, well, show us in chat tonight if there's anything. So it's survival, thingies that go bang, occult, prepping, and self-defense. So there we go. So, what about that then?
Happy days.
Yes.
I'll bring some props. Shall I do that? Shall I bring some props so we can do a show and tell?
Bring some props. That's right. And also, there's the product of the week we've got to display as well. I think people are like that.
Yeah, I'm intrigued with that one.
Yes, you can actually buy it in supermarkets because that's where I saw it, and I just almost fell over with laughter. But anyway, we'll nobody's guessed it yet. Now it says, David says, hopefully things less hectic my end, but also let's see if we can. Oh, that's all right then. So, I mix. DJ Beto says, yes.
All right,
But
cool.
has anybody actually had an experience where they've changed their mind at the last moment and it saved their life? Because that happened to my cousin twice. Seriously.
Wow.
When he was born. Well, I say my cousin. You see, my cousins were elderly because my father was the baby of the family. And his brothers and sisters are about 15, 20 years older than him. So I think he was the afterthought, and he did have a brother that was 4 years younger than him. But his brother's son, which was my cousin, he was a young boy during World War II, and he was due to be packed off to go to America and stay with my father's cousins who lived in America, you see. And he had all his packing case, everything ready to go, because that's what people did. They shipped their children overseas or evacuated them. And at the very last moment, I mean, my auntie was a little bit psychic. She said, "No, you're not going," and stopped him. She had a funny turn. She had a funny thought.
Mm-hmm.
And the ship that he was due to go on sunk.
Oh, wow.
And then a second time, later on in his life, I think he was in the Merchant Navy or Royal Navy, one of the two. He had a wife that was from Northern Ireland, and he was due to have a naughty weekend with her, shall we say. Her parents were away. And he needed to catch a ship from, where'd you go from to Northern Ireland? I think it was, is it
Belfast, is it?
Stranraer? I'm not sure where. No, from England, because he was in England. He's English. And I'm not sure where. Anyway, doesn't matter. I think it might have been Liverpool, I'm only guessing. And he was due to go on this ship, and for something happened at the very last moment where he didn't go, and the bleeding thing sunk. That's the second time.
Yeah,
He didn't have the dirty weekend with his girlfriend. So there we go. When I say dirty weekend, I think they were hiking or something in the muddy fields of, I'm a very innocent person. I bet they were, yes.
So just keep the wellies on.
Yeah. So he had his welly boots ready, and he's. Right. Well, we've come up to our time, which is 10 o'clock. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Really enjoyed it. Is there anything more people would like to add? I mean, Patrick, anything you'd like to say to the audience? And because we're broadcasting tomorrow night, and everybody's welcome on. And so, anything you'd like to say before going?
Yeah, if anybody would want to research more about H.L. Hunt, there's a good book that came out recently in the last 3 or 4 years by John Currington, who is his lawyer. And it's called H.L. Hunt, Motive and Opportunity. And the subtitle is The Means by Which H.L. Hunt Influenced the Assassination of JFK, King, Bobby, and Hoffa.
Really? It's a bit of luck that Mr. Hunt's first name wasn't Mike.
Yeah.
It's a mystery what happened to Hoffa, wasn't it? He sort of,
Well, he ended up in a meat grinder, from what this book says.
Well, they reckon that,
boots and all, rubber boots and all.
There was a gangland leader that was supposed to be propping up the a motorway in West London, but I don't believe it. I really don't believe it, because everything on site, they check everything thoroughly before pouring concrete. So if there's a stiff down there, I don't think they poured the concrete.
Well, the reason I say the meat grinder is this Hunt, he owned the largest cattle farm in America. So he was heavily involved with that.
I mean, I think that it was that doctor that got, it was definitely bumped off. The one who was the weapons inspector. And I think Blair had something to do with it. Can't remember.
I know who you mean.
Dr.
When was this?
20 years ago, something like that. Just after the more than that.
It was the weapons of mass destruction stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah. Dr. Kelly. Was it
Yes,
Kelly?
David Kelly.
David Kelly. And he's a very quietly spoken, decent bloke, and he didn't commit suicide. He didn't commit suicide, and neither did the German chap who gave himself up in 1841. What was his name? Hess.
Oh yeah,
Rudolf Hess. He did not.
Hess, Rudolf Hess.
Rudolf Hess did not commit suicide, and how I know that is the late Dave Starbuck used to go to Germany and Austria a lot. He used to collect coins, and I think he could speak German. And he was coming back on the train from Germany, and a lady who was in the army, a guard, came on and sat opposite him on the train, who was English. And of course, they struck up a conversation, him and his wife and this guard. And it came round to Hess, and she guarded Hess. And she said, "Well, you know that he didn't commit suicide." She said, "We all know that." And it wasn't Hess, which sparked something in his brain. He thought, when he got home, he started doing research into it. And he did a very good video on why he didn't believe that it was actually Hess in Spandau Prison. He reckons it was somebody else. It's interesting. That's all I say. I keep an open mind on it, whether it was or whether it wasn't. But I do believe he was done in. I think the evidence for that is overwhelming, because he knew too much, and he had to be, done away with.
One thing before I go, you remember the show Dallas? Did you get that over there about?
Yeah, we had Dallas. Yeah, with the big shoulder pads.
Yeah,
great theme tune.
Who shot JR?
No, JR is based off of H.L. Hunt.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
We'll have to do a show on this someday.
We'll have to. It's a bit like what was the other one? What was that one that film that Orson Welles did?
Rosebud, the sled in Citizen Kane was after what's his name, Rudolph or Randolph Hearst.
Randolph Hearst, yeah.
Randolph Hearst.
And he got a bit peed off about it, apparently.
Yeah, it was the nickname he gave his girlfriend or something or other. His girlfriend, I think it was her lower parts, should I say? Without being crude.
Yes.
That was the thing of that movie, and Hearst hated the movie as a consequence because it was attacking him.
Now, there's somebody very brave in the chat tonight. Very brave. Aunt Sally admits to watching Dallas. Aunt Sally, I used to love watching Dallas. She said that because people were going, she walks down the road tomorrow. And other spin-off show that was similar, but I can't remember the name of it. Oh, yeah.
Dynasty.
Yeah, yes. Dynasty.
Oh, Dynasty. No. Yes, it was all ladies with painted fingernails also. But,
I don't know what version of Dallas you were watching. this one.
But my favourite programme when I was a kid was Man from U.N.C.L.E. I used to like that. My granddad used to like that. He says a bit of action here. I like to see a bit of action. And what got me was all those people working in U.N.C.L.E. office, and they used an entrance that was a dry cleaners. Don't you think the enemy would notice thousands of people going into, or hundreds of people going into this dry cleaners and not coming out? I mean, that's a bit over the top, isn't it? That's it. That's it, Aunt Sally. That's it. Dynasty or dysentery, as I used to call it. Oh, it's dysentery. How did I forget the name of that? Laugh out loud. Yeah, it was at who was it now? Now Aunt Sally said, "Hang on a minute. The man from U.N.C.L.E. was weird. Yeah, the arch enemy was Thrush." What a name! All very innocent. How the arch enemy is that? Yeah, I used to like the man from U.N.C.L.E. Do you remember the other one with Department S? That was the one. And now, my big sister, this school, just cut my hair. I wanted to look like Crystal. Ended up looking more like Rod Stewart. My mum went mad. Hello, Crystal.
Crystal Carrington.
Crystal Carrington, yeah. But
well, was that a line in Only Fools and Horses where Roddy says to Del that his date looked like Crystal Carrington, and Del says Crystal Bleeding Palace more like.
a funniest one was the blow up dolls. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
Oh, that was classic, wasn't it? And the other one was the Batman and Robin outfit. When they went to a fancy dress, or they thought it was a fancy dress, the car broke down. They had to run for it. As I was running along, people thought it was actually Batman and Robin.
That's the one where they go to the at the end of it. They go to what was supposed to be a fancy dress party, and Trigger's turned up in a black suit because it's actually the wake rather than the fancy dress party. He says, I've come in my fancy dress costume. He says, what you've come as? He says, I've come as a chauffeur.
Do you remember that with his broom? I've had the same broom. Was it for 20 years? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it had 5 handles and 6 heads. It's the same broom. It's the same broom. And but the other one was my dad turned up at my christening, and my mum hadn't seen him for 5 years.
Yeah.
There's some classic lines in that. You don't get lines like that anymore, and it's a shame. Anyway, over to you, Roy. Anything you'd like to say to the audience before we go?
Just thank you for listening in, and hit that like button.
Thank you very much. That's very kind. Yes, and finally, but not least, but not last but not least, Steve. And quick plug, please see Steve tomorrow night. He'll be on the show. He's a star guest. And over to you.
Hey, thanks again for having me on, guys. Nice chatting to you as always. And I'm looking forward to tomorrow. I think it'll be another exciting show.
Plus the product of the week. That's something to tune in for, isn't it?
Brilliant. It's worth it for that alone.
Is that not the Wonder Pencil then?
We could have the Wonder Pencil as well. Hang on, I've got a Wonder Pencil. Here it is. I'm trying to think of why people can win them, you see. There's a Wonder Pencil. And there's a Wonder Pen. Look at that.
Awesome.
How come the Wonder Pencil in a plastic packet?
With an eraser, I don't say rubber because that means something else in America, doesn't it? But with the eraser at the end. Yes. See, we call it a rubber. So seriously, and lots of English people got into trouble in America saying, "Excuse me, go get a shot." Say, "Have you a rubber, please?" No, I can't make mistakes. No, I want to erase my mistakes with. Anyway, thank you very much, everybody, for coming on the show. And remember to subscribe, thumbs up, buy a coffee if you're feeling bleeding generous. And if you've got a few quid, because it saves you playing a mouth organ outside the cinema and all that. And remember, whatever happens, have a bloody good laugh. Good night.